I just want to start off by just letting you tell everybody a little bit about your organization so they can kind of just know a little bit about you guys and what you do.
Absolutely. Well, first of all, we are an 8-year-old organization. We are, as she said, Anti-Trafficking International, ATI. We are squarely in the prevention space. So really what sets ATI apart from a lot of other organizations is that we really focus on preventing human trafficking, and our tagline is stopping human trafficking before it starts. And I can just tell you, prior to coming on to ATI, I actually was at the Department of Justice, worked specifically on combating human trafficking there. And one of the biggest things that I saw there, it was this cycle of rescue, restore, repeat. And it was not a good cycle. You know, it was a cycle where the statistics that we're going to talk about human trafficking, quite frankly, they weren't changing. And so what we're here to do is to change those statistics. We don't want another kid to be trafficked in the first place. You know, we want a world where there are no rescues necessary. So that's really everything that we do here. And we are involved, I will say, on the rescue process, but everything that we do here really is prevention focused so that we can really save kids before they actually get exploited or victimized.
That's awesome. And that's why I love your organization so much. I did a lot of research, guys, and what she does and what everyone does over there is pretty amazing. Can you just kind of give us your definition of what is human trafficking, just in case people don't know?
Yeah, great question. So trafficking, the definition of human trafficking is actually force, fraud, or coercion. So really what sets human trafficking apart from just exploitation, for example, would be the money factor. That's what I always say to people, like, is there money involved? Is there an exchange of goods? That's what really sets it apart from just, you know, sexual abuse specifically.
So, okay, so gosh, I feel like a lot of people are targeted. Who all is targeted, or what do you guys see the most?
Okay, so the targeted area, and this is going to be surprising to a lot of people, is ages 11 to 15. In fact, 12 to
15?
Yeah, 11 to 15. In fact, 12 to 14 is the prime target age. I mean, we're talking literal children. These are literally children.
My daughter, who is here right now, she is 11. The thought of, she is a child. I mean, she's obviously a young lady, but she, in my eyes, she's a child, right?
Right.
11 years old. I cannot even, this is why it gets me so fired up. And I know there are a lot of mama bears on here.
Yes.
Sarah Philpott, I see you. She's one of my neighbors here in Tellico Plains. But it just gets me so fired up. And it's not that I don't care about the adults. It's not that at all. But I am a mom. And now to talk about my 11-year-old stepdaughter, it just, my head wants to pop off, right? I just don't understand it.
It is one of those.
Because we ask a lot of the times about who's being trafficked, but I feel like there's not enough questions on who's the people that are selling these children, like who are traffickers,
right?
You know, what to look out for. Who are they?
Yeah, so just to kind of give you a behind the scenes look, the traffickers are the people who actually sell these children. So they're the ones making this money. And by the way, I will say all of trafficking is ruled by greed. That is really the underpinning of what is causing this to happen, is greed. It's $150 billion industry worldwide, $150 billion. I mean, just wrap your mind around that. And then it's the second largest criminal enterprise in the world. We actually believe it's probably number one, but we don't have fantastic statistics on it.
Don't have all the true numbers, right? Because you know the children and the human beings that you save, but what about all the ones that you don't know about? Right. I mean, that's the scary part for me. And the fact that I live in Tennessee and I was, well, it can't be happening here, right? And then we spoke, and you actually told me something about Nashville that was shocking to me. What did you say about Nashville in particular?
Nashville is actually one of the biggest hubs because it's a 2-hour plane flight to 75% of the rest of the country. And because it has such an entertainment population and a
Mm-hmm.
really big sporting population, those are really places that traffickers target. Those are really
That's
all of those things.
and we talked the other day, guys, and this is something I want all of you to listen to. If you
Mm-hmm.
have kids, and now when you told me this, I actually got like the hairs on my arm stood up because I thought about how many times as a 20-year-old girl I was asked these questions. And you told me, you said, first of all, those kinds of events like, concerts and that kind of stuff, but also the Super Bowl
Mm-hmm.
being the number one, I think, event that you said that traffickers try to hit the most.
Yeah.
And you also like, and I asked her, guys, I said, well, like, how do you know, like, what would they do? What would they say to somebody? And she said, oh, well, like, I'll give you an example. They'd come up and say, hey guys, like we rented a boat or we've got a yacht and you and your girlfriends want to come out. Do you guys understand when I moved to Los Angeles, how many times that question, just that alone, that's
Mm-hmm.
why it hit me. How many times me and my girlfriends were asked if we wanted to board someone's yacht. Now, I didn't think anything about trafficking. I just was like, ew, creepy guy. I just kind of was just, blew it off as I don't want to hang out with that loser. But the people that are asking these questions aren't necessarily like these nasty, gross men with, with the words, hey, I'm trying to traffic you on their forehead. They could be good looking guys. They could
Mm-hmm.
be that maybe if you had a daughter that was a little, had low self-esteem, the fact that he would tell her, hey, yeah, you should model. You're really pretty. And I have this yacht and I have all this money and we could go out and just have fun for a couple of hours. And then what happens? You don't ever come home again. Those girls never come home. They're
Right.
kids. They're trafficked.
Right. So when I was at the Department of Justice, this was prior to the Super Bowl last year, and it was in Florida. And I remember getting on the phone with someone and saying, okay, tell me the real truth. Someone who would go down there, he was an investigator. He would train the investigators before the Super Bowl. And he said, and this is how it happens. Bottom line, exactly as you've said, so I don't need to restate it. They're really lured in. It's not straight kidnapping. And then they would actually bus in girls from Georgia. So they'd go, it was Florida, but they'd go bus in girls from Georgia too, down there. And then it was just a feeding frenzy of girls being sold. And we know this about the Super Bowl, but it's not just the Super Bowl, it's major sporting events. I mean, this happens at major sporting events all around the country.
Oh, but I can hear. Okay. So I just want to
Yeah.
make, some people were saying they couldn't hear us, but
Can you hear
can
me?
you hear us? Can everybody hear us?
Can you hear me?
I can hear you and I know you can hear me.
Okay.
Um,
Let's ask, can you hear me specifically? I don't know. Hope they can.
okay. All right. We got a yes. You got two yeses. So people
Okay,
can hear.
good.
Yes.
All right. This is
Okay.
live.
So I just want to specifically talk to parents, grandparents, anybody who is, a guardian of a child or a young woman at this point. Hey, mom. There was my mom. I want everybody to just think about that and how many times you let your teenage daughter go to a concert or go to a sporting event by herself with her girlfriends or whatever. This is why it's so important. And oh God, it's so important to have these conversations with your kids, because I never had anybody have these conversations with me because I don't think my parents really thought about it. To be honest with you, I think we all thought, well, that happens in another country. Like that doesn't happen here in the United States. That's their problem. So I think that because I think it's always existed. So I don't think it's getting worse. I think it's always existed. We're just finding out about it now, and it's coming to light, and more organizations like yours are shedding a light on it. So I think it's just super, super, super important to not, I mean, I know it's a really dark topic, and I know it's something that you don't want to sit down with your kids and have this weird conversation about something that's so dark and so just awkward, but it can save your child's life. And so I think it's really important. And on the same lines as that, and what would you say, like, what is the earliest you should breach this subject with your child?
That's a great question. First of all, there's a parenting resource guide totally for free on our website. So if you go to preventht.org and you go to the programs menu drop down, it says parenting, there's a free guide in there just to help parents. But
Okay.
my opinion on that is it's not too young to start talking about boundaries. So I don't use the word trafficking very early. But definitely talking about boundaries. I mean, we all know good touch, bad touch, but even, you know, because it starts with, it's not stranger danger, but just if you don't want to hug someone, you don't have to hug someone.
Love that you just said
Yeah.
that. That's super important because I feel like, you know, in the South, we're kind of like, well, go give her a hug. Oh, I'm a hugger. I'm a hugger, you know. But I think, and yes, there obviously are a lot of people that give hugs that's just how, I'm actually one of those people.
Right.
But I think it's really important to teach your kids the difference between, you know, when you have that natural instinct. And I think children are really, they kind of good about this, about having, or I would say most children, about having kind of their little like instinct about like, I don't necessarily want to hug that person. Don't make them hug that person. And more than importantly, let them know that they don't have to, and they need to say something when they feel uncomfortable, or if anybody has made them feel uncomfortable. 110%. I would say, would you say that, you know, someone going into the, I don't know, the 6th grade would be too young? Or, because I get a lot of questions about this, like, well, what is too young, right? Like,
Okay, so our curriculum actually starts in 6th grade. One of the main things we do is we provide curriculum to schools. And in the 6th grade curriculum, we really talk about abuse, healthy relationships, boundaries. And I will tell you, my daughter here where we live received that curriculum because the curriculum's in our school system here for the first time this year. And she came home and she said, Mom, I was so shocked that so many people didn't know this, that so many of her friends, this is the first time they were hearing it. And to her, it was very basic. Never used the word trafficking, never used the word trafficker, just talked about, you know, really basic stuff. People should, gifts, for example. This is one of the things parents don't think about is gifts. I mean, if I can just dive into grooming, because trafficking is grooming. It doesn't start as straight kidnapping. So I do want to make parents feel a little bit better, because I always hear parents, they've usually seen the movie Taken. They're really scared that their kid's going to be kidnapped off their front lawn or just straight out of a mall. That's not.
Yeah, it's not.
That's not what we're looking at. We're looking at a systematic process of grooming from someone that they know, that they like, and that they trust. And if they don't know that person, the goal of the trafficker is that you do get to know them, that they do gain their trust.
Right? That's what it's called, grooming. Just so you guys, when she uses that word, that's what she means by that.
Yes. Yes. Grooming is lying. It's how they get you to believe they're a good guy when they're a bad guy. I mean, in very simple terms.
Essentially, it's just brainwashing your kid to make, okay. All right.
Yeah. So it's that process. And so that's what we start.
Yeah. And I wanted to bring up the fact of it's scary for me because let's just say my daughter, or Leah, you know, she's 11. So let's just say she's 18 and she's been speaking with this guy online, because a lot of these teenagers, they meet people online and they talk or whatever. How do I know the difference between if a guy's flirting with her or if somebody's trying to groom her? That's the scary part.
It is. It is. And honestly, a lot of times it looks pretty similar because it starts with flattery. You know, one of the most common phrases that they'll use is, you could be a model. You're so gorgeous. You could be a model. Well, sometimes that's just a pickup line. I mean, that is the truth. Sometimes that can be just a pickup line, and it doesn't mean they're a trafficker. I mean, you know, we've been young too. So that's the thing. They weren't all traffickers. But the bottom line is that really that they have to be on the radar when that is said, because following that up is, hey, you could be a model. Why don't you come here? Why don't you do this? Why don't I take some photos of you? Why don't you come over to my house? And that's where the line starts to get crossed.
And then you mentioned something about gifts, which I think is important because it starts with, like, you know, because I mean, a lot of girls, you know, we think, oh gosh, if somebody gives us something, that's so sweet and that's so nice. I mean, he really likes me. And so I think that's important to mention as well. And I really think it's important that you ask questions to your daughter, and that you have that kind of relationship, that relationship where, you know, it's they feel like they can talk to you. Because if you lose that, then, you know, you lose the ability to have any insight into their world. I mean, unless you know, talk to one of their friends or something like that. But I just think that open line of communication about the relationships with the people that they have in their life, not necessarily their boyfriends, just people that they have in their lives. And it's just really, really important that you are involved in that. And I don't mean like, you know, nosy Nelly on every little thing, because God knows that would have got annoying in my life. But you should ask questions for sure. And if something, and sometimes sometimes young girls have their own intuition, and they're kind of wishy-washy. I'm like, no, this guy's kind of weird, but he's nice, and, you know, he pays me attention, and he says I look like a model. I mean, what woman doesn't want to hear that she's beautiful, you know?
Sure.
So that's exactly the right things to say. So it's really, really scary to know, you know, who these people are. I mean, because they're everywhere. They're everywhere in our country.
Absolutely. I think you hit the nail on the head with the keeping the lines of communication open. So my girls, I actually have two girls that fall squarely within the target age. And I will tell you, just teenagers in general, their body rhythms, whatever, they really like those conversations at night. And so it is my literal biggest priority over everything else in the day. I would say even over family dinner, not that we don't do that. We do that too. But my biggest priority is that I go into each of their bedrooms individually at night, and I sit there with them, you know, and give them at least a few minutes. And I remind them quite regularly. I don't know how often, you know, you can tell me anything. Is there anything you want to tell me? Is there anything you want to talk about? Just saying that regularly is so, so important, because then they can come to you. Sometimes at night, they have a lot to download. A lot of nights it's, you know what, I'm done, I'm ready to go to sleep. But there are plenty of nights where there's a lot that comes out at night, you know, and it's just part of that teenage rhythm. And we actually have a girl, she received our curriculum in the school system. She had loving parents. She was being groomed by her employer. So she worked at a cute little kiosk in the mall, and this guy was getting to know her. She liked him. She trusted him. She really wanted a boyfriend, which is also one of the signs is girls are more vulnerable when they really want a boyfriend. And she actually heard our training in school. So she received our training in her school and realized the very next day that she was going to probably be trafficked, that this man had asked her to go somewhere, and she realized that she was being groomed, that it wasn't normal. So she went home, and guess what she did? She told her mom, and her mom called the police. They actually investigated. It turned out it was a trafficker.
Oh.
They arrested him, and he's off the streets. I mean, this is the best case scenario. She's not a statistic. She's not a statistic. She doesn't, her whole family was spared, and this girl was spared, and her future was spared. And that's exactly, I mean, that's just one story of many.
And I just want to remind everybody too, I know we're speaking about girls, and I'm speaking about girls because I just always revert back to Leah and my 11-year-old stepdaughter in Army. However, this happens to young boys as well. So I don't want to, obviously, I don't want to, kind of gloss over that. It does happen to boys as well. It's very, very important to talk to your sons about this as well. Give me a percentage about what's the difference, like how many percentage are female versus male that are trafficked?
So globally, it's 71% are women and girls, and 29% are men and boys.
Okay. All right.
On the boy side. Yeah.
It's definitely like if you have sons, I don't want you to think, well, I got boys, it's not going to happen. It happens to them as well, for sure.
Absolutely. We do an anti-trafficking conference here in Northern Virginia every January. And this year, one of our keynote speakers is a man who was trafficked as a boy. And it absolutely, absolutely happens. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay, so let's talk about, I want to talk about signs of trafficking that you can pick up on as just a friend of someone, as a mom, as a parent. Like, is there kind of like a list or a few things that you can just kind of say, okay, just watch for these things?
Yes. So there are very specific signs. So first of all, the signs, let me give two signs. Signs that make someone vulnerable, and then signs that someone's actually being trafficked. So signs that make kids vulnerable are a few things. One is not having a lot of friends or a really strong peer group. Believe it or not, one of the biggest things that makes a kid strong to prevent against trafficking is having really good friends and not being isolated. So that's
Right.
one.
Right.
Number two, really good open lines of communication with their parents. Traffickers look for signs of kids actually complaining about their parents. They see those as vulnerabilities. The third sign would actually be, and how do I explain this? Just a quieter personality. And some of that we just can't change, right? You know, that's just how you're born.
Yeah.
That's part of it. And that's not an official thing, but just being someone who's a little bit quieter, more withdrawn, more isolated, wanting a boyfriend, someone who says over and over, I just really want a boyfriend, really wanting that male attention or female attention, that is really a sign as well. Signs that someone has actually been trafficked are kind of easy to miss and can look like other things, unfortunately, in the teenage years. So they take some questions. One, grade slipping. Almost always the grades start to slip. Usually there's weight loss. So I will say weight changes almost always happen. And one of the biggest signs that people don't think about is fatigue. These kids are very, very tired. So 90%, just to give you a real life scenario of how this happens, 90% of trafficking victims in the United States start out in their own homes when they're trafficked. They're not kidnapped off their front lawns. They start out in their own homes.
Mean like they are trafficked by someone else, but they're
still living at home.
They're still at home. So
they're still living at home. Yeah. So it's usually a boyfriend. It could be an employer, but it's usually a boyfriend. And basically through and this is, R-rated stuff, he lures them in and basically either videotapes, common scenarios, videotapes them having sex, videotapes a rape, or just threatens, says, if you don't sleep with my friends, if you don't sleep with this person, I will kill you, I will harm your family members. The threat involves some threat of fear that gets her to engage in that initial act of trafficking. We've seen it happen right here in Fairfax County on school grounds in the woods behind like a high school. Had one girl, she was being told she needed to leave her house every night. Her parents had no idea. So she was told she needed to sneak out her window at night and then she would be trafficked. She didn't want to do that, but the threat was, we're going to kill your family. So she did it. And the only reason the parents found out is because one of her friends called and said, your daughter's not here. And they went and checked her bedroom, and sure enough, they began the process. But she was about to be kidnapped at that point and taken and sold to a gang in New York. And they caught her before it happened. But what I'm saying is that's how it happens. That's how 90% happens. And by the way, this is an upper income household, two parents living together, loving family. I mean, all the things that we think make our kids immune to it do not make our kids immune to it. Education is probably the biggest predictor of whether a kid is truly going to be vulnerable or not. Because with all the factors that I've told you, if children are armed with education and their parents are armed with education and teachers are armed with education, and we know the signs and we know what to look for, then they're just very unlikely to be trafficked. Like my own children know so much, they're probably at a much lower risk. Not that it couldn't happen, but that's really what we want, is we want to lower the risk for all of our kids to be trafficked.
Prevent
it. Yeah, right.
That's why I love what you guys do. It's all about prevention. Airports. Okay, you're going through an airport. That's where I feel like a lot of these kids are coming in. It's either airports or it's at a border, right?
Yeah.
As well. I know there's a bit of a border issue right now. Yeah. If you're comfortable with going there, I would just love to kind of talk about what's going on and what can we do?
Yeah. So the border issue specifically is an issue. And I noticed when I read through some of the other questions and the comments, people talked about it. And let me tell you, I'm not going to shy away from it. So I used to live actually in Tucson, Arizona, which is about an hour and a half from the border, lived there junior high, high school. My dad was federal law enforcement. I saw firsthand, this is many years ago, but even the issue of just straight kidnapping there and just wanting to traffic and take kids across the border for trafficking. The crisis that we have currently is, and I'm going to pull out my notes because I want to be very specific that I get the facts right on this, because I always stick to the facts. So just to be clear, kids are not taken across the border right now just to be trafficked, but most are up to 60%. We don't have hard stats, but the estimate is around 60% of the children who are currently coming across the southern border are with smugglers and not with their parents. And so because of that, they're in a very, very vulnerable position already coming across. The second thing that really makes them vulnerable is the policy that specifically states, and again, I'm not getting into politics, I'm just stating like absolute facts of what's going on right now. So the policy currently in place really encourages that these families or these children be released within 72 hours. Do whatever you can to make sure that they're released within 72 hours. And that sounds really good. I mean, the underpinning sounds like, oh, that's humane. That's, let's let them go. The problem is that that really rushes the vetting process. And so what we're seeing happening is the kids come across the border and then they're ripe to be trafficked. So once that 72 hours is up, they're left. They are picked up by traffickers. We have reports. The New York Post posted an excellent, excellent article. Homeland Security, and I'm going to look at my notes. Homeland Security agent Michael Conlin, who oversees a team of monitors that directly oversees this pipeline directly from the border states to New York, because by the way, they take them out of these border areas. So you watching, I fully believe that if someone is watching this, you are seeing this for a reason, and you are learning these signs, and you are there to be eyes, you are there to be ears, you are there to watch for it in your community, because this is happening all over the United States now because of the border crisis, because these children are being taken all over the United States. So he estimates he said that he's prosecuted cases or seen prosecuted cases of girls as young as 14 who have been forced into prostitution. And they are held in apartments in Queens, New York, against their will. They're driven from appointment to appointment to have sex with men. This is what this man said. And he's in charge of what we call Homeland Security Investigations, HSI. They really oversee a lot of the law enforcement arm of this.
By the way, just to tag on to something you just said, I just want to remind people, like, with a drug, drug dealers, they can, they sell you a drug and then it's over. You got that one, then the drug is gone. With a person, this is why it's so attractive to a bad person, a trafficker. They can sell these humans over, and like, how many times a day does it normally happen?
Normally, I don't have the normal statistic, but it can be up to 40 times a day.
Could you imagine? Can you
40?
Like, can you imagine 40 times? That is just like evil is the only word that comes to mind. But anyway, sorry to interrupt you. I just wanted to tag on.
No, but this is what we're seeing happening. And then on top of it, the foster care crisis. I mean, you just type foster care crisis, border crisis. So because there are so many children here that are really not with their parents, there is a huge foster care crisis. And literally government workers in some of these border states are being asked to take in these children into their homes because there aren't enough foster parents. So the vetting process for foster care, the preparation for foster care isn't there. And I can just tell you, my family that I grew up in, we took in foster kids. They were foster parents. I had incredible parents, very loving parents. I saw the best of it. But I am telling you, there's a lot of preparation on a family to take in foster children. And that vetting process isn't there. And in addition to that, 60% currently, this is before the border crisis, 60% of children who are trafficked have been in the foster care system at some time. So the link between just alone foster care and human trafficking is enormous. And so the border crisis has caused an even bigger foster care crisis. So we don't even know how many children are really being trafficked out of the foster care system alone. Like, we don't even know, just because of the border crisis.
Oh my God, this is like so depressing. I mean, I want you guys to, like, obviously, I know that the people that are listening, this is, it's sad. But I want you to know that obviously we're giving you all this really sad information and dark information. There is a way to
Yes.
help. There is a light at the end of the tunnel, and that's what Anne and her company and her organization does, and they try to help. Please tell people what is something that they can do. I mean, obviously, I know we can all donate. Which, by the way, guys, just to remind you, in my bio, I have a link for, so it's really easy. I have a link to Anti-Trafficking International. It's really simple. If you want to donate, if that's something you want to do, go up there. It's really easy. You click on that. There's a big donate button. And just please tell people, if they do donate, what does their money help to do?
It goes directly to expand our prevention curriculum. We get calls from schools all over the country that want our curriculum, and we literally don't have the money to be able to get it in there, and the school systems don't have the money to be able to implement it. So we run incredibly efficiently here. Every dollar goes back into that. The second thing is our National Human Trafficking Intelligence Center. We are currently expanding it. It's a way for you to report incidents of human trafficking, and then we investigate. We've actually partnered with...
This is, by the way, people really pay attention to this part. This number that you call the number, yes. They handle it from there. So yes. It's really important, because I feel like even if you're a teenage girl or a boy or a person being trafficked or a parent or whatever, you're just like, well, what am I supposed to do now? Like, you know, you can call this number and they will investigate it.
Yes. And when you donate, that money is going directly towards the operations for that, and getting intelligence analysts to expanding our intelligence analysts so that we have even more people to investigate. So there's no trafficking investigation tool like this in the country. There isn't. We've partnered with ShotSpotter Investigate, which, just so that you're aware, they are one of the premier crime detection policing detection agencies in the country. They partner with Washington, D.C. PD, with New York City PD, and now they're partnering with us, with ShotSpotter Investigate. And what we do is we investigate all incidents of human trafficking. So you can report, instead of calling the police or worrying about what are the police going to do, by calling 1-800-TAP, T-A-P, to the number 2, TIP, T-I-P, 1-800-TAP, to tip, like to give us a tip. And you can leave a message, and we will immediately start to investigate whether that is a sign of human trafficking. I will tell you, one of the biggest reasons that trafficking goes unreported is that people are afraid to call, or they don't know who to call. And the National Human Trafficking Hotline number, they're there primarily to connect people to resources. And if you call your local law enforcement, you know, first of all, that's a scary call for a lot of people, but a lot of times the trafficker has already taken that person out of state. Like, they're already gone. They're not in the area. And then law enforcement has to communicate with someone else. Well, we take that away, because what we want is, we want kids recovered, and we want traffickers off the street. And that is exactly what NHTIC does. And that's why it's getting a lot of buzz and people talking about it. But we're only as effective as that number is spread. So we need you spreading the number, like she said, donating, so that we can increase our capacity, just so that we have enough analysts to really analyze the increase, because we've had a real increase in calls. So we really need that. And the other thing is to share. I think this is one of the most overlooked things. Share this post, share information on human trafficking, and get educated. You know, if you go to our website, there's an entire drop down that says Human Trafficking 101. And I can't tell you how much information you will learn. I've only scratched the tip of the iceberg here today. You go to Human Trafficking 101 on our website, totally free. You are going to learn so much about trafficking, grooming, what is it not, who's vulnerable, what are the actual statistics, and all totally free. So that's my thing. Get educated, share, and get involved. So that's really, we can change this.
And absolutely. And speaking about just getting educated yourself, because this is something that, oddly enough, a friend of mine showed me a documentary, which surprisingly I can't find anymore online. Shocker. So and as soon as I watched this, it really changed everything for me. But I won't say, like, look, I'm going to give you, and Anne, you can also give some a name or two of some documentaries or things that people could start to watch. But I think it's really important for everybody to do your own research, because I feel like when you go down this rabbit hole, and I warn you, it's dark and you won't sleep at night and all, you know, but I think you have to do the research yourself. I think you have to read this stuff. You have to see the interviews with the people. And if you're brave enough to sit down and really go through this, by the end of it, I promise you, you will want to do something. You will reach out to me, you will reach out to Ann, you will reach out to whatever you can, or whatever organization. I'm not saying you have to be a part of our organization. I'm just saying do something. Just do something to help. And you obviously, you said, you know, we can share, we can, you know, I want to go back to the signs of knowing that someone's been trafficked. Let's just say I'm walking through the airport, okay, and I see a child with a person or whatever. Like, what are some of the things that I should be looking for?
Yeah, great question. Well, first of all, it can be a man or a woman who's a trafficker. So that's one of the biggest misconceptions. It's a man with some women. It can be a man, but it can be a woman. And then usually it's with one or two girls, usually in that teenage age range. A lot of times they're made up, their makeup, their hair, their nails especially. They usually, again, look fatigued. Fatigue is one of the signs. What I often notice, though, and this is what I tell people, is what is the relationship? Okay, what does that relationship look like? Are they interacting with that person like they're a parent? And yeah, teenagers can be aloof. We all know that. So it's a little, you know, dicey, but it's more than aloof. Is there a fear-based thing there? And if you really sit and watch and you see, wait, there's no warm fuzzies. It's more than just aloof. They seem almost a little bit frightened of this person. Then what you need to do is you need to immediately, well, you can call our 1-800, you can call our 1-800 number, but you can also alert just airport staff, and they need to immediately.
I would absolutely.
Yeah, just alert airport staff, say, this looks like a possible human trafficking. I need you to investigate. And if you go tell them that they need to investigate and say it with some authority and confidence, the onus is on them. They have to go do that. You know, they really need to go look into it and not just, you know, poo-poo it. So anyway, that's my opinion, and you're not going to get in trouble for doing that. I'm saying that because it's actually one of the things I've heard over and over and over from people is, I'm afraid to report. What if I say something and I'm falsely accusing someone? And my feeling is, so what? That person then just goes free. So they're interviewed and, you know, investigated, and they just go free. But what if you're right? What if you're right? You've actually saved people and you've put a trafficker away.
Yeah, totally agree. Okay. I want to give people a couple of things that they can watch online. Me particularly, I saw a documentary, wrote down the name of it. I hope I'm getting this right. The Girl Next Door, the story of a human trafficking survivor. So that's something good to watch. And then you had two that you thought that people should watch. What are the names?
One is called Tricked, and it's a tiny little documentary by Fairfax County Public Schools, but it's really excellent. It's about an hour long, and it's called Tricked, and it's all about human trafficking.
Right.
The other one is on Netflix, and it's a documentary called Hot Girls Wanted, because honestly, that's a catchphrase that they use to market, and they say Hot Girls Wanted, and girls go in thinking they're going to be a model, and really they're being lured into exploitation and eventually being trafficked. So
that's really good to make, because I know growing up in my teenage years, I always saw like these modeling ads. Like, if you want to be a model, come to this location, have your pictures, vet these people out. Like, if you are a parent, be like, I'll go with you. Make sure you're packing. It
should be in a real building. I mean, you know, we've both been in the talent model industry, but you know what I mean? They should be legit, not in some,
like, make sure before you send your 17-year-old daughter off to a casting call.
Yep.
To make sure, or at least make sure your daughter checks them out. You know, I mean, because obviously we all have, visions of grandeur, like, oh, I want to be a model. I want to be, just make sure you investigate a little bit, take some time, know where your kids are,
Mm-hmm.
know where your kids are, period. Parents, like, don't be lazy, know where they are. Putting a GPS tracker on my,
On
like,
their phone.
um, okay, so we went over that. I'm trying to think if there's any other questions that I've got here that do you have anything?
I think that's about it. I want to just say something if your kid has been trafficked, because I've heard this too to parents. If your child has been trafficked or if you suspect it, don't hesitate to call us. You can even call the tip line number. We'll get the message and just let us know, because we have resources for parents whose children have been trafficked. And that's one of the scariest and most isolating places to be, is that you find out this has happened to your child and you think, what do I do? But we have a whole parenting coalition that can help you with that as well.
Awesome. Oh, I love this woman. She's so great. And I'm just in awe of everything that you do. And thank you.
Thank you.
Without people like you, I mean, this would just get worse and worse. And I know, like, it seems like when you think about this, everybody who is really upset about this, when you look at this problem, it seems like it's just, well, what in the world can I do? It's too big of a problem. And it's so easy to turn a blind eye. And it's so easy to say, well, I mean, I'm just one person. Like, what can I really do? If it felt like that, it's never going to stop. And so, and it's a large industry, and it's a scary industry, and the people that are involved are scary. But you know what? I would be willing to die to save a kid. So if you want to come at me, come at me. I mean, you know what I'm saying? Like, I think we all have to be brave. And I say over and over, we should be marching in the streets of this country over this problem, because we have, this is a massive problem. I mean, they're taking our children. They're taking the most precious things that we have. And for everybody to just act like it's not happening is beyond me. And it's so sad. So I just want to get people riled up. I want to get people to really do their research, because if you do your own research and you start watching these documentaries and you start formulating your own thoughts about this, because obviously we can talk all day and tell you what we've found out, but everybody needs to do it on their own, and get mad about it, and help. And so and I really, really appreciate you taking the time to come on this Instagram live and tell everybody a little bit about what you guys do, and also help us stop this crazy thing that's happening. And we'll try to do this again, guys. I think it's really important that we just keep reminding people that this is happening, and it could happen to you. It could also happen to your kid. And by the way, I just have one more question. It just popped up in my head. The percentage, and I don't know if you know this, but the percentage of adults who are trafficked versus children that are trafficked. Do you know that number?
50% are under the age of 18. So I will tell you 50% of people who are trafficked are under the age of 18. And I just want to tell you, first of all, thank you. And thank you to all. I just want to say this. Thank you to everyone who's listening to this, because this is hard stuff. Yeah. But I want to encourage you that stuff changes. So just to give you an example of this, I worked in government before this. In the country of Sudan a few years ago, they went through a huge revolution. And it was, do you know what? I sat in the office with a congressman and I said to him, this revolution is going on. We got to do something about it. I had specific ideas. And he said, who's funding this? How is this happening? I mean, something like this can go on for 6 weeks, but this is going on for 6 months. Who's funding it? And I looked him in the eye and I said, it's happening because of women. And this is documented. Women were rising up. It was mama bears. And I literally used that word. I said, it is a bunch of mama bears. And they are tired of this. They're tired of their kids and their daughters being taken off and put into slavery. And it is time to get mad about it. Like with the thought of a little boy or girl sitting there. Can you picture this? A little boy or girl sitting there, and then some stranger comes up, takes them off to a hotel room where they are abused, and then they're just taken back like it's no big deal. And that happens over and over. That's what we're talking about. And it is time to get upset, but there's something we can do about it, and to encourage you in the country of Sudan a few years to go, you know what? They've seen enormous changes. That revolution happened, and it was led by women, and it was led by a bunch of mama bears, and that whole country is revolutionized and still in the process of it, and huge changes are happening. So I absolutely believe this is not a problem that we can't do something about. And especially, you know, your audience, and I'm a mom, you're a mom, moms, we can really do something about this. And like you said, it starts with education, but just raising your voice and getting involved. Yes.
Oh, you say it so well. It's the rise of the mama bears.
Exactly.
Mama bear, I hope I don't go into labor right now. I get all excited about all this. Am I getting my heartbeat going?
Yeah.
No, but again, thank you, Anne, and thank you everybody who has stayed on this and watched with us. I hope you guys learned something. God knows if you think someone's being trafficked, you know the number to call. You can reach out to the website that I have in my bio. That's the Anti-Trafficking International website. So just keep learning about this. Keep educating yourself. Keep educating your kids. And hopefully we can do some good and stop this.
We already are. Thank you, Jill. Thank you for being brave. Appreciate it.
For sure. Okay. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.